Hey guys! So, in this video we are going to talk about hacking. Yes, so let's get into it. Well, I don't want to use the term hacking, but let's call it hacking. I more refer to reverse engineering, if you will. I suppose you can label it as hacking, but I think hacking is a little bit an overused term these days. It used to mean something specific, and these days everybody's, calling almost everything hacking or hacking something, basically. But let's just talk about it. So let's give you a bit of context. So the other day we had an issue with a feature basically. And in order to fix this feature, we basically had to have a look at an application that we depend on as a third party, which doesn't have a well-defined public API. So what we basically had to do, the way it works is virtually that we figure out how the API works through an application that this organization is providing, and it's an Android application. So that made me very happy because I actually have done quite a bit of, quite a bit is a strong word, but I have done my share of Android development. And this was my first time ever I'm one of those people. I'm not a hacker, guys. I'm a complete amateur at hacking overall. I have a great passion for it, and I'm very interested in it, but I am a software developer. I'm not a full-time hacker, but I know my way around some basics about hacking, reverse engineering, these sort of concepts. So I got to get introduced to it in a professional capacity, actually. So here I am sitting with an application, or rather an APK, a Android APK, and basically the job is for me to figure out what has changed in the interfaces for this application, so that we can figure out why our integration to the system isn't working anymore, so we can make updates so the integration keeps on working. I mean, this is all legal. There's nothing illegal about it. So it's legal hacking, if you will. So what's interesting about this is that some of my colleagues, they were a little bit jealous because they were just doing regular stories, and it's kind of cool to a lot of people that, oh yeah, you'll decompile the APK and all the source files and try to figure out how everything is structured together and make tweaks to the application and just try to figure things out. And in order, like in this case, we had a network-based connection, so thank God it wasn't logic or anything like that, because that would have been so horrible. Oh, good God. Going through obscured code in a when it's been decompiled is a shitstorm. Oh, sorry, not that word, but it is not so fun. This is what I'm gonna come to. You see, although it might sound like a fascinating thing to reverse engineer something or hack something and so forth, it actually is. It's like a road trip, guys. At least that's how I feel about it. This is just my personal opinion, of course, but it's like a road trip. It's fun the first hour, and then it's so boring for the remaining 8 hours, because it actually isn't all that fascinating. It's not like in the movies. Trust me, I wish I felt things were as cool as it is in like Swordfish or The Matrix or whatever, and I just sit down at this application I'm supposed to hack, and I start seeing the code in my head and everything just works. But that's not actually how it works. In fact, it took me and my colleague 2 or 3 days of full-time work to figure out how to crack this, basically how to crack the system. That's how long it took. And basically the way it works is whenever, and this is a good tip for you who are interested, if you're ever trying to crack an Android application or some sort like that, it's actually very easy to figure out how the network requests work by simply reverse engineering the APK or decompiling it, and then start looking for the network requests. And if it's on HTTPS or something of that nature, you can actually use a little tool. Well, you can use a man-in-the-middle approach to just monitor the network requests back and forth. That's exactly how I solve these sort of issues, because once you see how the network interaction works for the application and you just start using it as a regular user, you can see what the interfaces are. When you have that, you now know that you can fake these network requests on your own application, which is a very nice way to kind of figure out how a third-party API works. That's at least how I do it. There might be better ways. Anywho, so my colleagues were a little bit jealous and said, "Oh, we wanted to do that." And I said, "Yeah, sure, take over." And they kind of went, "What? Are you serious? You would give away your chance to do this?" And I said, "Yeah, because the thing is that I already know what I need to do. I already know what my goal is with this hack. There's no experimentation, there's nothing like that. All it really is me sitting trying to figure out how some other programmer has built a system through obscured code, because when you decompile something, you don't actually get the perfect source. So it's not like just reading regular code. You have to just figure out how everything is structured. You have to figure this. Imagine this. Imagine that you are a programmer from anywhere that is not China. And basically you go to a project where everything is written in Chinese. It's not that horrible, but it's very, like, that's the sensation at least I have when I try to read decompiled source. Because, like, it's, as I said, it's fun right in the start, but after a few hours it just becomes really tedious, because it's actually very systematic. You go through the code, you try to figure out what the logic is, you try to figure out different strategies. Okay, I mean, if it's a network request, that's why I was saying earlier that I'm very happy it wasn't logic, like something internal to the application, because a network is easy. Usually reverse engineering a network call is as easy as finding the URL. Once that you find the URL or the URLs, you can kind of very quickly figure out, okay, this is where the code is that does the actual network call. But if it's internal logic, then you have to basically, and especially if it's complicated logic, oh god, you couldn't pay me to try to reverse engineer something as advanced as, say, I don't know, some advanced application that you have on your phone that does everything internally, because then you have to understand all the complexities of the algorithms and the system basically in a format that was not meant to be human readable. And yeah, that can take a lot of time. So basically what I'm here to tell you is that the basics of hacking portrayed on TV as this quick little process where someone just cracks a system in a matter of seconds, that's not reality, guys. The reality is that it's basically what hacking is about. At least when it comes to reverse engineering and that sort of thing. It all comes down to you knowing how a system is structured. Like for me, as I know Android, I was one of the prime candidates to do this, because I know that when I have decompiled this APK, I know where all the files are. I know what the conventions or what the conventions for the system is. So it becomes easier for me to kind of use my understanding of Android and Android development to understand how the people who made this thought when they structured everything. So basically that's hacking. You simply use your knowledge of how these systems usually work, and then you try to, from the outside, if you will, figure out how everything fits together, or the specifics of what you're trying to do. And in our case, it was just to figure out how the network calls were made. So for us, it was very easy in comparison to what it could have been if we needed to do something more complex. So I encourage you to have a look at penetration testing. Don't laugh. It's actually called penetration testing when you do it legally, or pen testing. It's great fun, but don't get fooled into believing that hacking is something that is easy. It's one of the trickiest things that you can do. I actually think that a lot of, and that's how I do it. I mean, I have tons of time. There's tons of times that I get inspired by something, and then I buy some equipment, or I watch some tutorials about different techniques for security testing and stuff of that nature. But you know, it doesn't last all that long, and it doesn't last all that long because it's actually a lot of work. That's why I argue that it's so, if you have the good benefit of knowing somebody who's really good at this stuff, get to know them very well, because you should know that for them to acquire the skills that they have and be really good at hacking, it takes a lot of patience and a lot of skill to get good at this stuff. So you should show them your respect, because most people, honestly, just regular programming, at least in my opinion, is almost, it's almost like a fireworks show in difference. Like the interest level for me, or how much fun it is to do regular programming, is, in my opinion, leaps and bounds higher than it is to hack something. That's of course my personal opinion, but I try to show the people who have learned hacking and really are really good at it a great deal of respect, because it is extremely time consuming, and the rewards are usually very small. Usually it's not, you know, when you hack a system, it's very rare that it's like this big dramatic thing that you can do. Usually you can only do small exploits here and there. Sometimes you get a really, really cool hack, and that's usually that's what people get excited about, trying to figure out how to do something meaningful. But it takes, as I said, a lot of time. So yeah, hacking, study it. It's great fun, but be prepared, because it's not as sexy as the movies make it out to be.